This is Dr. David Allen coming to you on the television program, People Helping People. You know, there's so many tragic issues facing the world, and many of us are scared and nervous. But you know, the challenge of life is that at its heart, life must be non-dualistic. You have to see the bad or the tragic, but you have to also see the beautiful. You have to look at yourself and recognize, sure, there are negative things about you, there are difficulties in your way, but you still have to choose to grow. Our program tonight is, how do we break free from our own codependency, our own lack of growing our life to become what we want to be? How do we break free to move to our potential and not get addicted to our limitations? With me is my daughter, Dr. DrMarieCarol3, and we're talking about breaking free to grow beyond codependency. Marie, breaking free is not easy.
No, it's not. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of courage. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight is that it really is a process. I think before we thought it was a one-shot deal. You break free, you make that cut, you make that decision, that choice in your life to do something differently. And sometimes it's not always that easy. Whether it's leaving a relationship, whether it's losing weight, whether it's stopping an addiction, we realize that it's a process, and it's a journey more than an actual destination. But it's very possible, and so I want to talk a little bit tonight about some of the ways to do that and the support needed in order to do that, because change is possible.
I suppose the first thing, though, a person has to be aware that they're not breaking free. And how do they develop that awareness? What causes awareness that I can move beyond my codependency, that I can move beyond my wanting to please others or please everybody else? I can move beyond my limitations. What makes a person aware that they can move beyond where they are?
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to start, because we've talked about codependency a couple of times on this show, but I think it's really important to back up and realize what it's about. So basically, codependency or perfectionism or lack of boundaries, whatever your issue may be, it's based on you trying to help someone so much or staying in a situation so much that you start losing yourself. So your internal self starts dying because you're trying to please either the workplace or a family member or a relationship or just society in general, and your natural instinctual self starts to be pushed down. So in answer to your question with awareness, what happens is all of us have this intuition, right? I think women especially, men do too, but women especially have this little intuition. And what happens is, as you're moving through life and things are starting to get complicated and difficult and unmanageable, that little voice inside starts bearing down on you, and you know that something's wrong, that nagging feeling that this is not right, this is not the way it's supposed to be. But because there might be other people depending on you, or you have no idea how to break free, or you have no idea what it would even look like to not be in an abusive relationship, or in a difficult job, or in addiction, you stay there. What happens with awareness is you get to that point where you can no longer stay it. You can no longer use your denial as a defense. And a lot of times in our family group, you hear people talk about all of a sudden the lens is off their eyes falling off. And once they saw something, they couldn't unsee it. A woman talking about abuse, thinking that it was just normal that she would be called names and be put down. And all of a sudden, looking at her little child while this was happening and seeing the pain in the little boy's face, she knew she was no longer able to do this. So awareness happens when we say, life has become unmanageable. I can no longer juggle all these balls. I've tried so hard. And what happens is that the balls are starting to drop anyway. And a lot of times other people are seeing it before you see it. Maybe you're getting into more car accidents. You're kind of spinning out of control. You're doing everything you think, but not doing it properly. Maybe you're getting a lot more physical ailments. Your back is always hurting. Your neck's always hurting. You're not sleeping. There are clues that things aren't going right, but we just get so good at living in that denial because we just don't know what change would actually look like. And so that fear and that doubt that anything can be better holds us back.
You know, it's so important, Marie, because in our country where people are hemmed in, we're worried about crime, we're worried about financial issues. But the real challenge is that people can still choose to grow. And that's how we'll heal this land. You know, that when we realize that we have the potential to be better than we are, that we have meaning, dignity, identity, and value, that we can grow to accomplish something we couldn't do in the past. That's a tremendous challenge.
It is. It is. And it's a challenge, and it's also manna from heaven. It's like a glass of cold water when you're really thirsty and you're hot. The seeing someone's face when you show them, or when they come into an environment where they actually get a glimmer that development and change and growth and freedom is possible, it is unbelievable. So what we're talking about is how to get to that point. Other sessions we've talked about what is codependency and how it happens, and there's different ways it happens, you know, whether from a childhood experience, trauma, being hurt, either in a feeling of feeling safe or feeling rejected or abandoned, whatever it is. There's been other shows about how it's developed. We want to see now, how can we know what's going on, we know that life has become unmanageable, we are aware, now what do we do? And one of the second steps in Dr. Allen's theory, contemplative discovery pathway theory, is number one is awareness, the second one is confrontation. And confrontation doesn't mean you have to go confront the person or the situation, but it's basically that space within yourself that says, I can no longer do this. So now I'm aware of it, the denial is broken. Number two is I'm aware of it and I have to do something about it. And I don't think there's anything more painful than becoming aware of a situation. So your eyes have been open to the situation, you realize that it is really bad. Your denial is broken, but feeling like you have to stay in it anyway. Yeah. It's one thing if you're staying in a situation because that denial is protecting you so much. But once you realize you're continuing to choose to stay in a very destructive situation, that is painful, because no longer are you just angry at the situation, you're angry at yourself.
But Marie, you know, it is hard to confront some painful situations. I mean, some people live under tremendous challenges. And to really confront them is really difficult. Yeah. And they're really afraid to confront them.
Absolutely.
But the reality is, I guess, you can't conquer what you don't confront.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why we don't minimize it, because none of us can judge another person's pain or situation. Everyone's pain is their own pain. No, one pain is not bigger than the other pain. And we also don't know other people's stories. You can see someone, for instance, someone might say, why is that person staying in that abusive relationship? Unless you know what's going on for that person. Maybe she doesn't believe there's any other hope. Maybe she doesn't know how financially she would be able to do it. Maybe she's scared for her life or her kids' lives. We never force someone to confront anything before they're ready, whether it's in a group, whether it's in a therapy situation, whether it's in a friendship. I know the temptation is to kind of shake the person out of it, but they have to be able to come to that point as well. And again, that's why I keep saying it's a journey. There might be one day you're really ready to confront this. That's it, I'm done. And then you feel weak and tired and you just don't want to do it anymore. So the awareness happens, the confrontation happens, but it's not always just an immediate thing. A lot of times it's a process. And the more exhausted and stressed and vulnerable we are, and having people rely on us, whether it's kids or a family situation or finances, that strength to confront can be hard. And that's why it's so incredible to have support system. Because on those days when you just don't feel like you can confront it anymore, you're just so sick of trying to get out, you're so tired of having to change and make a new life for yourself, that's where your support system comes. Whether it's family, friends, our family groups, we do a lot of work with helping people through the process of change and growth. But it's not something you can do by yourself. It's just, you need support and help.
It's so important to recognize that, because you can easily break one stick. It's very hard to break 10. So when people come around a person who is hurting or who is fearful, somehow that person becomes empowered and they can do things they didn't dream they could do.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of the reason why someone's stuck in a difficult situation is because they feel shamed, they feel humiliated to admit that they've gotten into this mess, whether it's an addiction, gambling, or drinking, or cocaine, or in a job that you're really not happy with, or your child's messing up, or whatever it is. You can feel that you're letting down people by admitting it, or it's humiliating to admit. A lady just the other week in one of our groups said, you know, her cousin was there and was like, why didn't you tell us you were getting beaten so much? And she just said, it was just too humiliating. How did this happen to me? She's a strong, assertive woman. How did this happen? It was just too humiliating. So we have to be very careful with people's shame. The difference with shame and guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. And when you've been in a situation where you're being so emotionally hurt, you start taking on that feeling that you are a mistake. So part of confrontation and part of the support system is speaking about what happened. We always talk about shame thrives in secrecy. Shame thrives in secrecy. So when you isolate yourself, when you allow yourself to be isolated, when you no longer connect with family or friends or do the things you normally love, that shame can start feeding on itself because you have no one to say, no, look, it's not, you're more than this.
Wow. Very important. We're going to take a break and be right back.